Morning, and how are you going? Today what we're going to be working on is just a 520,000 kilometre service of the Toyota Landcruiser. It's a 1HZ engine running in a 80 series Landcruiser, and we've possibly got another 75 joining us later on. So I just thought I'd show you what I do. We're doing all filters and oil change, and I hope you enjoy the video. Just mixing up a little bit of this Chemtech workshop degreaser to run through the engine bay and underneath the car. And what I do is I put it in the air compressor spray unit, just give it a nice light coating everywhere and then wash off with the pressure washer. Seems to work pretty well for me. So we'll get into that. Diluted at, they recommend for workshop you can just do it straight, but for a car it's just light degreasing, so I'm sort of doing it probably about 1 to 10, something like that. All right, here we go. It's worth putting on the mask, I reckon, when we're doing stuff like this. Just when we're putting it under pressure with the air compressor, it tends to vaporise a bit. So you don't want to be sucking those vapours down. Okay, that's had a little bit of time to sit while I've run around looking for hose fittings and things like that. And what I'm going to do now is just give this a quick spray down. Kind of not putting too much pressure on anything that's electrical, hopefully. Mainly just kicking around the rocker cover gasket. And also, because I'm going to be changing the filters, I'm sort of working a little bit around where the air filter is and also over where our fuel filter is over here. Bit of a blowy day in Candelo, so you know we can get a bit of dust lying around. Hopefully it won't be too bad for us later on. One of the things is that I just noticed when I came up to the car, a little bit of an issue there with our front spotty, so I might have to try and see if I can manufacture a new bracket for that. So I've had a bit of a wash, and I'm going to back it into the workshop now and just drain the plugs. It was taken for a run into town and back this morning, so it's reasonably warm, but the warmer it is, obviously the quicker your oil will drain. It's good to let it all drain out, and that's what we're going to do right now. So these are the tools I use. Got a little socket set. I like the 1/2-inch drive, matches the breaker bar, which is a really useful tool for doing mechanics. Screwdrivers, and then 2 lots of spanners. These tools I've owned for about probably 8 years. They've been fantastic, and I keep them all in a nice little pack, and they'll last a long time. I highly recommend buying good tools from the start. I'll be removing that drain plug right there with a 14mm spanner and carefully dropping the oil into a bucket, and that's going to sit for a while. And while I'm doing that, I'll actually take the brackets off the front with that spotlight and see if I can get it fixed up. Been draining now for about an hour, I'd say, and I've been pulling this apart and working on how to reconnect my lighting bar. And what I found was that a couple of old exhaust brackets off the Datsun probably going to work pretty nicely. So I'm just in the process of manufacturing that now. So our brackets are fitting pretty snug now, which is awesome. And yeah, I sort of made them so they were really tight because I don't want it to slide this way or that way too much. And our next thing will be maybe taking and making some sort of bracket that'll hold underneath the bull bar. So it's going to go from here around and here. And I'm hoping to make it removable so that if I want to, I can use the light as an evening guide when I'm working on the Landcruiser at night. Yeah, I use black 20-litre drums for my dirty oil, and the old veggie oil call it funnel. Tip the old oil in here. And we're back under the car again. Just thought we'd tighten this up, make sure it's snug. Sometimes you have to change the washer on that too. But yeah. That's feeling good. Sweet. Next up we're going to do the filters. We're going to start with the oil filter. I'm going to pull the oil filter off. I didn't do that earlier and I usually would. But I'll take it off, start it. I'm going to fill the car with oil and know that that job's just done. Then I'm going to go to the air and finish with the fuel filter. I feel like these filters are backwards because obviously when I undo this we're going to drop a bit of oil. So if you've got some card underneath the car that helps, but I'm also going to just shove a little rag down in here against the bottom of the block, so when the oil does drip down there it'll catch on that rag. Cool. Shove this in here and hopefully we've got a bit of purchase on that. I think I'm going to need a tool for this job. Got a little filter wrench here. This is going to help with this job. Put it on there and there we go. Once it's there we can just do it by hand. There it comes. And I'll try and get them off pretty quick. You can see that my rag's doing its job there. Put this in a cardboard box. Next job is taking a little bit of this oil and going to put a little bit of oil around that rubber gasket there for when it connects onto the housing. It seals nicely. It says here, apply a thin coat, tighten 3/4 to 1 turn by a mounting tool after the gasket contacts the engine block. Caught a fair bit of that oil, which is good. And going to add that filter housing now. Slip it in there. Oil filter onto the housing. And there we're tightening now. I'm just going to take this rag out now because she's done its job. And I can see that this is facing up towards me. It says 19 there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin it round till it comes back. Just give it a little bit of a nip with the tool. And we just nip her up. That's about 3/4 of the way around now. And that's feeling pretty tight. So I don't think we'll have any leaks there. Oil filter done. This is the air filter change now. Let me get into that, and that's pretty simple. We just undo this. And I would typically at every oil change pull this air filter out and give it a blowout with an air compressor from the inside out, just to make sure that all of the anything that's come up is gone. Make sure you know where you're putting things like this. Sometimes it's handy to have a little box to put them in. Just take off the air vacuum hoses or whatever they are. Pull this out, and we're into our air filter, which is still got a little bit of water on it from the clean. It's stiff, and that's the air filter there. It was last changed at 500,000 because I've written that on there, so I'll write 520. The reason I'm changing it now is that we had bushfires, and this got a little bit of driving in the ash, so the filter's kind of clogged up a bit. There's also down the bottom of the air filter casing a little container here on the chassis. Looks like this, and you can see that it collects a lot of the solids, so I'm going to give that a quick clean out too. Okay, so that's been cleaned out. It's a bit hard to show you guys where that slips in, but I'm sure you'll work it out if you own one of these cars. There's a little metal guide on it which shows you where to slip it and clip it. Hopefully. There we go. 1, 2, that's clipped in. And the brand new air filter is just going to go straight in. It's always good to just double check there's nothing hanging around inside the filter housing. It's looking pretty clean. And I'm at 520, so I'm going to write 520,000. And I'll check the book on when to change that next. But I'll typically just keep a pretty good eye on it anyway, and when it's looking pretty grubby, put a new one on. They love air. That goes on. This goes on. Clips 1, 2. It's feeling a bit funky. It's falling out. 1, 2, and 3. Air filter done. Next up is the fuel filter, and what I'm going to do is actually take the fuel filter, the entire housing out, and mount it in a vise to do this job, so that I ensure that there's no leaks. 12mm fits perfect. Don't put anything on the battery, it's never a good idea, and good habits would you'd actually disconnect the negative terminal from the battery so that you had no risk of arcing across that. So those guys are off, put them somewhere safe. Whip our first hose off. A little bit of diesel there. Unclip and whip that second hose off. Let's go. That's the housing out and the filter out. We're going to go and put it in the vise. Diesel's a bit of a commodity, so we might try and keep as much of that as we can. I'm just going to use the priming pump and push it into this bucket. We use it as a parts cleaner or a lubricant later on. New filter in hand here. Pretty straightforward change. You can see that plastic will be coming in handy later. That's that new seal that we'll put this bottom float system on. Just going to rub a little bit of that motor oil on that seal just to help with the purchasing of it. Keep it nice and clean, and we'll tighten him up. Just nip it up till she's nice and hand tight with this one. Not going to go over the top, and I'll keep an eye on it. Perfect. Feels good. Same thing, a little bit of oil. I've just got the handy jug down here. Got a bit of oil on that. And clean. Throw it on the housing. The instructions on this are to replace filter, tighten by hand, about 3/4 to a turn after the gasket contact. It's the same thing, but there's no need to actually go on with it. I'll basically tighten it up until it feels nice and firm, essentially. Once again, we don't want any fuel leaking or air getting into our injection system. That just does not work. There we go. Next job is to put it back in. Okay, we're going to reinstall the fuel filter now. First job is to sit the housing back where it was on our 2 bolts and reconnect the pressure and water well, I guess it's a water sensor that's at the bottom here, I'm not exactly sure. Clip, it's back in. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the inlet hose on the top, which is coming from the tank, and I'm going to pump the pressure up until we get a little bit of diesel coming out of here before connecting the injection pump line, which is that outlet hose. It's got an old bearing cap. Let's get that pumping and get some fuel in the system. I feel like you're getting a bit of resistance now, which means the fuel must be coming close. There it is. I'm going to slip that hose on there. Let's make sure they've got pretty snug connections. A couple of pumps for good luck, just to pressurise the injection pump. And don't seem to be having any leakage, which is good. Put my nuts back on and I'll tighten that up. There's probably a torque setting, I just don't go over the top. It's a fine line between snapping a stud and keeping them good, I can tell you that. Snapped a few studs in my time. That's what happens when you've got a musician who tries to be a mechanic. Okay. I like to do the tighten of these just with a ring spanner. I feel like if you jump on that with a socket spanner, I mean it works, but you don't sort of get the sensitivity to how tight it needs to be. Yeah, 3 veins popping out is probably more than enough. That's that housing back down. So there we go. Fuel filter done, oil filter done, air filter done, and a little bit of a clean up now.
Tidy, Sam.
Yeah, it's so tight.
I want mine to look like this.
Yeah, it'll look like this in time. Helps if you give it a good clean. Alright, so we're into the last part here, and what we're going to do is just check the the oil level of the car, and I can actually see it's pretty tidy and clean in there, so we haven't got a real clear idea, but I'll try and bring it over and show you anyway. And you can see we're just above the low line, so I'll put another couple of 100 mil in there, then I will get the car started and give it a run into town, and then after that we'll be doing the double checks. At this point, like at a 20,000 check, I would do things like I'm just going to check my drive belts are in good nick. I'm also going to check that the clutch and brake fluid's all good, and I'm going to just do another quick tidy round, make sure the brakes are working properly. That's a good thing to do. So yeah. It's been another big day here at Martin Farm, getting things together and doing a service on the Landcruiser. Like I said, we did the oil, fuel and air filter today, and I've also done a quick check on the belts to make sure there's no perishing or anything like that. I'm about to check the power steering fluid and the clutch and the brake fluid to make sure those are all good. And yeah, hopefully we'll get another few thousand Ks out of it. It's a good thing. And this has ended up being pretty solid, given where it started the day. But I think that those cable ties are definitely a temporary measure until I can work out a bracket system that holds them better. Pretty happy with the old exhaust system though. That's good refuse revival right there.